I love the idea of training. As a coach, I'm always coming up with exercises to help someone acquire a skill that's going to
Right.
help them get what they want, which is kind of fun. It's kind of fun to come up with a
Mhm.
new practice. What's your favorite training for people that feel disconnected to God?
Well, I have a very specific path of my own, so I really can only teach my path confidently. So there are other paths, and when I teach people my path, I say, if it doesn't work for you, then you just find another teacher that teaches something that feels better for you. It's almost like choosing a sport.
Mm-hmm.
Some people take to a golf club or a tennis racket, and other people take to bowling, other people take to wrestling. So in a way, you have to know your spiritual personality. And so I'm very clear about my spiritual personality. And I say to people, this is not a judgment at all, but you have to understand your spiritual personality and find that teacher. So what I'll call my spiritual personality is very much language and text oriented. Okay, so coming out of the it's part of a general theory of language. When you look at the language theorists of the past 100 or so years, it's also very embedded in the so-called Hasidic tradition, which is language in general, words in particular, mediate between the conscious and the unconscious. So especially words that have a kind of a sublime nature, like love, justice, truth, and beauty. They can't be defined adequately to a skeptic, but they name some process of the soul. They name something, sometimes I call the river flowing within us. So there's again, it's a theory of language, but not many theories of language have produced spiritual paths. So this is where I'm going to go to the Hasidic tradition, because there actually is a spiritual path of meditating on phrases, words. I like the Jewish tradition, but I also read a lot of poetry, memorizing, and as it were, allowing it to sink. And the expression I oftentimes give is dripping through the granite that is between us, the conscious mind and the soul, and it just drips through, and it hits the fountain of life. I sometimes call it the fountain of light. These are biblical terms. And it's the power of certain words, we call them holy words, the power of holy words to break through the resistance to experiencing the soul. Now, I talk more about experiencing the soul because I feel God's presence is in the soul. And the way God becomes present in the realm of the soul is completely unpredictable. And that's where, in a way, you just have to enter into the river of life, the river of light, and allow what happens to happen. But that takes, for me, when I use my Bible, my prayer book, Stephen Pressfield's work, believe it or not, certain poetry, it's a way for me to hold holy words in consciousness and then allow them to pierce down into the river of the soul.
I can see it. Yeah. And it's beautiful. And I haven't done a lot of that myself, but when I have, it's very accessible.
Yeah.
So
they'll say, what about music? I say, yeah, I like music. I like chanting, but I like to study a text. And people say, what about dance? I say, great. And the other thing about it is the texts I study are intrinsically wise. So not only am I using, as it were, words to pierce down to the soul, the manifest meaning of the words contains wisdom that I memorize. And, and then in that way, the wisdom of the text ingested into consciousness. So the path is natural for me, but I also think it's not only connects to my soul, but I think it connects to wisdom.
I'm seeing now my grandfather in a way, perhaps he's similar to you. He reads the Bible every year through and spends a lot of time letting it sink in to his granite. And what's striking me about what we've talked about so far is the sort of the patience that you have in your own approach, and or counseling, like a 10-year approach to solving gun violence. that there is, and I know you said, transformation takes time, but I really feel that allowing of it to unfold in the time that it's needed.
Mhm. Yes, and yeah, so I am patient. I don't think I think of myself as a naturally deep person. I think deep thoughts, but not spiritual in that connecting with the world of the soul takes work for me. So I'm willing to put in the work. As I've taught my path of virtue, the whole path is called virtue, rationality, wisdom, and depth. Depth is this area here that requires a completely different skill sets from virtue, rationality, and wisdom. But I've seen people learn some virtue skills and change their life within a couple of weeks. They said everything's different. And then other people learn rationality practices. They said, I've never thought about myself. I've never thought clearly. Thank you. So it's interesting that for some people, this is like a magic potion. It's exactly what they need. They heard it at the right place at the right time. And then they're really ready for the next step, which is what I call the applied wisdom of ego state transformation. Nobody's naturally good at that. That actually takes a lot of training. And it's one of the most interesting things to experience when you can sink into an ego state, understand how it works, understand the substitute ego state, connect the two of them, and train that connection. That's really amazing work. And again, first it's insight into what's happening, intervention with the substitute ego state, and ultimately transformation. That's really incredible. I mean, when people get to that class and we start working on it, they can't get enough of it. And then of course there's the depth. And for me, I think of it two ways. When you've had the depth of the experience of the holy, then wanting to be a wise, rational, and virtuous person is utterly natural. Because if you experience the depth in an authentic way, you can't stand yourself if you're not wise, rational, and virtuous. It's a betrayal of what you've discovered. So on one hand, the path is virtue, rationality, wisdom, and depth. On the other hand, once you get up to depth, you have a natural will to become wise, rational, and virtuous. So they feed into each other, as it were. They create the will and energy in both directions.
What's coming up for me is that often these entheogens, these plant medicines, psychedelics, give sort of a taste of depth, I think, for people, and then can lead them to the other. So it's almost like a back door or a hack into wanting those things. What's your experience with that?
I have a few people that are into, what did you call it again?
Entheogens.
Okay, whatever the word is. And listen, if it works, it works. But then, what I say to them is, whatever insight you're gaining there, you have to language it. It has to become a memorizable language that then you can use when needed. Because I've known to people that have gone to ayahuasca retreats and other kinds of things with profound feelings of change. And I say, that's great. And then 2 weeks later, I say, how's your marriage? And they say, same as always. And so whatever you're going to do in the plant world, it has to be translated into language and therefore into a practice and into a discipline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the terminology that folks use is integrating the experience into your life, and
that's exactly right. And that takes training. I mean, here's an example. You can say that. They have an answer to that question. It's just nice sounding phrases. I mean, the training has to be rigorous and specific and ongoing. I'll give you an example. I hurt my back many, many years ago, and I took remedial yoga. And you don't do yoga and finish your 8 weeks and you're done. It's not like taking an art appreciation class, right? Yoga is for life. So I still do my yoga discipline just about every single day. I have a stand-up routine. I have abs. I have agility, and I have a whole routine. It takes about 45 minutes every morning. I do it 5-6 days a week. and then I do cardio, and then I go to jujitsu. So people say a lot of time. I said, what's my other option? You know, like
I, you know, this on one hand, being able to train all of these things is kind of a relief, right? Like whatever you're not good at or whatever's not accessible, like you can just train, practice, and get there. And so everything is available in a way. And perhaps culturally, we avoid training to a large degree, it seems.
Well, yes, until someone decides, you know, that again, being naturally gifted in music will take you so far, and then you have to train. Even on the mat, I'm not a gifted martial artist by any means. I'm a plugger. I was stunned every time I got promoted. We have some guys come in that are just enormously talented, and they get to their purple belt, you know, based on incredible agility and, you know, a really good feel for the sport. And then you got it. Then no matter what, you know, to get advanced beyond your purple belt, which is a pretty high belt in jiu-jitsu, you know, it just takes the constant training. So I think natural skill, charm, grace, talent will take everybody so far, and then you hit the spot where you have to train.
You know, I see in my kids that they naturally train different things just by preference. So it looks like they're naturally good at, you know, my son is naturally good at games and chess and things like that. My daughter is naturally like amazing balance, but it's that from the age of 1, they're practicing these things that they have an interest towards.
Right.
You know,
and that's a great thing. Whatever it is, as long as it's not morally harmful, once a kid finds something, that should be encouraged, because it's incredible. Like, I love to read and I love ideas. No one ever had to teach me to love ideas and love reading. You know, so other things like, you know, I play a plugger bass guitar, you know, my jujitsu, these are things that have not come easy to me. And I got to tell you know, when I began jujitsu at 45 years old as a white belt, you know, one thing was I was relieved I wasn't the rabbi in the room. Somebody else was the rabbi. You know, because if you're always like the person with the most knowledge in the room, it's not very healthy for the soul. So I needed to go somewhere I was the least knowledgeable, and, you know, back to beginner. So it was a relief for me to defer to the rabbi, meaning the jiu-jitsu trainer. And still now, even though I'm a black belt, I mean, there are several guys, including my coach Chris and my personal partner Vince. I mean, they're geniuses, and no matter how much I train, I won't come close to their level. But still, I don't have to be the rabbi. I don't have to be the PhD in the room. You know, I got plenty of that in my life.
Yeah, there's a certain joy also in as a beginner. There's sort of rapid growth available because almost everything like is going to help you get better. I normally I'm a bike racer, but this year I'm playing ultimate frisbee, and was playing last night, and I felt like every single point I would ask my experienced teammates on the sideline, you know, like what did I do, and they would critique it, and I could go out and I did something better, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting better so fast. It's very fun to feel that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so it's wonderful to take things on that are outside your comfort level. You know, but then also whatever your gift is, never to abandon your gift. So I'm always reading, thinking, conquering new books, mastering new ideas. It's my, you know, and my counseling practice. I really have refined the method to help people as you know, kindly and efficiently as I can, and you know, get people through humps so they can get on to the next thing, get on to the real thing. So all of this, even though I think I'm a naturally good intellectual and I'm naturally a good virtue and wisdom counselor, I can always refine it. I can always make it better.